The night of June 5th, 1944, is a wall of howling wind and salt spray over the English Channel. It is the kind of weather that makes men stay in their barracks, but for 13,000 paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne, it is the start of the longest day. Inside the vibrating, uninsulated fuselages of over 800 C-47 transport planes, the air is thick with the smell of vomit, high-octane fuel, and burnt tobacco. Each man is carrying nearly 100 pounds of gear: rifles, landmines, ammunition, and the small metal cricket clickers they hope will keep them from shooting their own brothers in the pitch-black hedgerows of France. The narration slows down to emphasize the sheer weight of the equipment. A paratrooper on D-Day wasn't just a soldier, he was a walking arsenal. He had his main parachute on his back, a reserve on his chest, a life preserver, an M1 Garand broken down into pieces, and often a leg bag filled with extra explosives. We see the strain on their faces as the planes hit the bank, the wall of German anti-aircraft fire waiting for them over the coast of Normandy. As the green light flashes over the jump doors, the men don't just step out, they are sucked into a chaotic nightmare. Because of the storm and the intense flak from the Atlantic wall, the pilots are flying too fast and too low, terrified of being blown out of the sky. This causes the stick, the line of men jumping, to be scattered for miles. Some men are ripped out of their planes at 150 miles per hour, the force of the wind snapping their equipment off their bodies before they even hit the ground. We follow the descent of a single soldier as he plunges through the clouds. He isn't landing in a neat field, he is landing in the middle of a flooded marshland known as the Murderay River. The Germans had intentionally flooded these fields, creating water traps where paratroopers, weighed down by 100 pounds of gear, land in just 4 feet of water and drown because they cannot stand up. Those who survive the landing find themselves in a surreal landscape. The impenetrable Atlantic wall is behind them, but they are alone. We see men landing in the middle of German troop squares, on the roofs of occupied houses, and even in the gardens of German headquarters. The chaos is total. The pathfinders, the elite teams meant to set up signal beacons, find their equipment smashed or lost in the swamps. The act builds tension by showing that for the first few hours, the invasion consists of thousands of isolated, terrified Americans crawling through the dark, using their crickets to find each other. Click, 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 click. The sound of a toy is the only thing separating a friend from a German bayonet. By the end of this act, the 13,000 men are a ghost army scattered across 20 miles of enemy territory. They are lost, they are disorganized, but they are exactly where the German High Command never expected them to be. The scene shifts from the muddy swamps of Normandy to the concrete silence of the German bunkers. Inside the Atlantic wall, the atmosphere is strangely calm. Because of the torrential rain and gale-force winds, the German meteorologists had issued a definitive report: invasion impossible. Based on this certainty, the top commander, Field Marshal Rommel, has actually left the front to celebrate his wife's birthday. The man left in charge of the 84th Corps, General Wilhelm Falley, is currently in a car, driving through the storm toward a war game exercise in rain. As Falley drives through the dark, the first reports begin to trickle into the command centers via landline. A coastal observer reports men falling from the sky near Sainte-Mère-Église. At first, the staff officers laugh it off. They assume these are just crews from downed Allied bombers. But then the phone lines start going dead. One by one, the eyes and ears of the Atlantic wall are being cut. We dive into the incredible aspect of the night, the Phantom Army. To make the Germans believe the invasion was even larger than it was, the Allies released Rupert.
These were hundreds of burlap dummies dropped in areas away from the actual landing zones. These dummies were equipped with firecrackers and incendiaries that mimicked the sound of a full-scale infantry firefight. We see the chaos at German headquarters as maps are covered in red pins. One officer screams that there are 5,000 men in the north. Another reports 10,000 in the south. The scale is so massive and so scattered that it makes no logical sense to the German order of battle. They're looking for a front line, but there isn't one. The 13,000 paratroopers have become a fluid enemy, popping up behind hedgerows, firing a few rounds, and disappearing back into the darkness. The narration highlights the great delay. Because the German system was so top-heavy, the local commanders aren't allowed to move their heavy panzer reserves without direct permission from Hitler himself, and Hitler is asleep. No one wants to be the officer who wakes the Führer for what might be a minor commando raid. While the generals argue over maps, we see General Falley's car suddenly screeching to a halt. He has reached his headquarters, but the gate is blocked. As he steps out of the car to investigate, he hears a strange sound in the wet grass. Click, 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 click. Before he can even draw his Luger, he is cut down by a paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne who had landed in the general's own driveway. By the end of this 9-minute act, the German High Command is in a state of analysis paralysis. They are so focused on waiting for the real invasion at Calais that they treat the 13,000 men in Normandy as a distraction. They are blinded by their own arrogance, unaware that the distraction has already severed the jugular of the Atlantic Wall.
As the sun begins to rise at 5 a.m., the true scale of the disaster hits the German survivors like a physical blow. The impenetrable Atlantic Wall, which had cost millions of marks and years of labor to build, is being attacked from the rear. The 13,000 paratroopers, though scattered and lacking heavy artillery, have formed what the military calls LGOPs, little groups of paratroopers. These are teams of 5 or 10 men, often from different companies, who just met in the dark. They don't have orders, so they follow the only rule they know: attack whatever is in front of you. We see these small teams capturing vital choke points, like the Manoir de la Fiere bridge. For 3 days, a handful of paratroopers will hold this bridge against waves of German tanks, preventing the panzers from reaching the beaches where the main landings are about to begin. The narration focuses on the iconic image of Sainte-Mère-Église. Here, a paratrooper named John Steele is famously caught on the church steeple, watching from above as his comrades fight a desperate house-to-house battle below. This town becomes the first to be liberated in France, a symbolic hole punched straight through the German defense. As the dawn mist clears, we see the German artillery crews, the men who were supposed to sink the Allied fleet, turning their guns toward the sea, only to find a bayonet at their throats. The paratroopers have spent the night spiking the big guns, shoving grenades down the barrels, or killing the crews in their sleep. The final minutes of the video show the Allied fleet appearing on the horizon, the largest armada in human history. The German officers look out at the thousands of ships and realize the terrifying truth: the invisible army that fell from the sky has already won. They have cut the wires, captured the bridges, and neutralized the guns. The Atlantic Wall didn't fall because it was breached from the front. It fell because 13,000 screaming eagles and all Americans tore it apart from the inside before the first Allied soldier even touched the sand.